but we're at the wrap party, and you know, Matthew McConaughey comes over to tell me his opinion on my new logo design, and I'm like, he's like, I really like it. You know, I like the way that you did this, and this, and I'm like, awesome, thank you.
That's amazing.
Even though you don't really have a say. It's TechStot's going to decide, but I just little moments like that I feel like sharing, that kind of comes with really focusing on what you want and what you believe in and what you know your talents will be good at, and vocalizing that and where it'll take you.
On this episode of Establishing Your Empire, I host Andi Scull. Andi is the founder of H.O.P.E Outdoor Gallery, which stands for Helping Other People Everywhere. She is also a partner in the Native Hostel and provides consulting and design work through her company, Scullpower Creative. Andi's interesting and powerful story continues to bring hope to our great city. You're listening to the Establishing Your Empire show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs, creatives, and future business owners to pursue their passions, grow their organizations, and build their empire. My name is Daran Herrman, and creatively, I'm best known for my photography. But business-wise, my claim to fame is growing a company from $15K per month in online sales to breaking the $1 million a month barrier. And I'm sitting down with interesting people to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how they have established their empires. All right, Andi, thank you so much for being on my podcast today. I'm really excited to actually have somebody in person as opposed to virtual. Why don't we get started and you just tell us a little background of who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I'm an Asian American producer and creative director that's specialized in non-traditional productions and kind of reaching more of the creative class over the past 2 decades of my career. But really, I just simply like describe myself as a creative and a mom and a friend.
So how did you get into the creative world? Did you fall into it? Did you always want to be a creative? Like, how did that happen?
It really is kind of the whole story of my life. I had to fight pretty hard I don't think fight is the right word. I think I had to work really hard and believe that I was born to take this path. So the summary of that was I was raised by my Chinese mom in Norman, Oklahoma at first. And by the time I got to my senior year in high school and told her that I had been researching different jobs, as I had been since I was 12, which was kind of expected as the eldest Chinese daughter, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go to UT, which of the schools I got into, and I'm gonna be an art director. And she definitely
not a lawyer, not a doctor,
not a doctor, a dentist, or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, and then to be fair, I mean, my mom, she's a pretty cool, unique person that growing up was a 10 o'clock news reporter, journalist, and my brother and I grew up with her being the producer of a local Cablevision show at the University of Oklahoma. And
very cool.
Really kind of took a creative route herself. And so her concern more was just about, well, then why go to college? If you're not going to go on and get a master's degree, then why don't you go to culinary school or do any other kind of just skill set learning? And I was like, no, I really want to have the college experience. And so this begins kind of the other part of my specific story, and being raised by an immigrant mother, and really being an American child, and kind of the conflict that we would have sometimes, and just her understanding some of the things that my brother and sister and I just knew that we kind of needed. So for me, it wasn't, besides the fact that I'd done my homework, which was also kind of expected, that was like, UT is an incredible school. Fortunately, I got to come here because my dad moved here my senior year in high school. So I got residency to come. So the price comparison was like a no-brainer. Then it's an incredible school. And then this program was the top in the country. But I was like, I'm really going to need that like American college experience to be able to relate to my peers as I move into, if I really want to work in a field of communication. And I just kind of saw myself, needing to communicate and interact and share experiences.
And do you think that, because there's a lot of narrative around college, whether it's, if you get a return on that investment, whether you should do it. It's kind of funny that you almost were fighting to go to college, where a lot of the stories is the opposite, where parents are forcing their kids to go to college, right? So do you think that it was a great experience for you to go to UT and be there and have that experience?
Absolutely.
Great.
But I can say for sure, when I came to visit Austin, to me, I was moving to Austin. I wasn't going to college, and that played a big part too in me really believing in myself, really thinking that this is a direction that I want to go and become an art director, but in a very cool city where I have all these experiences. So I feel like all of those factors are important, for anyone choosing whatever they want to do in their life, that, creating yourself as a whole person, the whole experience, your downtime and personal time should be an important part of like your decision making.
Plus, I think Austin, just there's a certain group of people that are here, like, going into art, being an art director. I think there's a lot of creative people here. It's got that vibe. Nowadays there's a ton of photographers and videographers. I'm not sure when you went to college how much, because when I first moved here, it was starting. I moved here in 2008, and everybody's, there was a few of them, but not like now, where everyone does something creative, it feels like. So what was one of your first positions, like when you got out of college? Like, did you go right into art director role, get the perfect job, or what was that like?
Well, I did kind of start off with an incredible experience, a story that I'm kind of sharing more now. I mean, I've definitely had interns and mentored over my career, but now I'm kind of doing more talks to just kind of share this with more students. So what happened for me was we were getting near critique for the creative sequence, and I noticed that all of the agencies that my professors had invited were from New York, Chicago, LA, and I knew for sure that I wanted to live in Austin and that I wanted to get a job here. So I called my professor and I said, "Listen, I'm just going to go ahead and opt out of critique because you didn't invite any agencies from Austin, and I kind of felt like that was the right thing to do too, because the creative sequence was an application program. They only select 30 students per year, and I don't know. I just felt like I didn't want to waste anyone's time, or like this, I'd like them to focus on my friends who really want to work for Leo Burnett or wherever." And she got so upset with me. She's like, "What?" She's like, "I fucking hate you, Andy." like, no, you're one of our star students. I mean, all the students were star students, but she's like, we kind of want you to show your book, like it's part of the program. And she's like, "But I hear what you're saying." And turns out I sat on a pitch last week for this new ad agency in Austin. Because I also told her, I'm like, not only do I want to live in Austin, but I'm positive that I won't be able to sell just anything to anyone for any reason. Like I'm pretty sure that this program has helped me see that I'm going to be a very focused art director. So she's like, "There's this new agency called Enviromedia. They're the first 100% green ad agency in the country. They just won the Don't Mess with Texas account. And I'm going to call the president right now and recommend you. And I hate you for this."
Well done.
Yeah, and that's really, yeah, that happened for me. I went in, I met them, and you know, I still had to prove myself, and it wasn't like the big glossy art director job, but I definitely wasn't going to be like thrown away, or I came in and got to work with the core team starting that agency, and then I designed the Don't Mess with Texas logo, the rebranded one that was used for like 18 years.
Wow.
And lots of other things that I wouldn't have ever gotten to do as a junior art director.
And I do have listeners kind of all over the world, so maybe give a little clarity what "Don't Mess with Texas" means.
Yeah, so it is the most famous litter campaign in history. But it really is it's a slogan for the Texas Department of Transportation, for TxDOT, and it originated as a litter campaign that was promoted by Texas musicians, and that's how it became pretty famous. But also, of course, the slogan, coming from what essentially is a country within the United States. So for me to get the opportunity to rebrand that through a competition, through our ad agency, to then see that on stickers around the world.
I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was 21 years old and had friends driving to Alaska and see a sticker design that I made on a road sign. So yeah, Don't Mess with Texas is actually a litter campaign. And that year when we got it, part of it was rebranding and adding in more creatives. So the pitch that they won was taking a turn to showcase more of our Texas directors and actors. So the first spot we did was with Rob Bendler and Matthew McConaughey. Which also was pretty cool for me because we had the rap party for this spot. There's actually a few interesting stories out of that, which what literally was the result of the Matthew McConaughey bongo story. But we're at the rap party, and Matthew McConaughey comes over to tell me his opinion on my new logo design, and I'm like, he's like, I really like it. I like the way that you did this, and this. And I'm like, awesome. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Even though you don't really have a say.
Yeah.
TxDOT's going to decide. But I just little moments like that I feel like sharing, that kind of comes with really focusing on what you want and what you believe in and what your talents will be good at, and vocalizing that and where it'll take you.
After this Don't Mess with Texas campaign, what happened next? What's the next step in your journey?
So I stayed in advertising, and then I went to Kenya to visit my aunt there. And that was a big life-changing moment for me. So my family kind of is all over the place, all over the world. And my family in Kenya has been there my whole life. And my aunt started a children's book publishing company, only hiring African artists and African writers. And this was after her being in the Peace Corps. And so at 24, I finally wanted to go see her. And it was also 1999. So I was going for like, New Year's and the millennium and the Y2K. There's all this, we don't know. And I was like, what better way to go out than be on the beach in Africa if like the whole world's going to shut down. So yeah, I go to visit her, and I go to her office, and I'm walking around, and I realize that all of these artists that she has are similar to me. They were her graphic designers and layout and, her art directors, yet their machinery, their programs were years behind what I had at my desk at home, on my laptop that I had brought. And then we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the power goes off and everyone's like, yeah, da, 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 da. I'm like, what? Wait, what just happened? And mine's like, oh, well, you know, and then all of a sudden these generators come on, boom, and then everyone goes back. And she's like, oh, yeah, you know, the power will just go out. So we always keep backup generators. I'm like, oh, my
Better save often.
yeah, exactly. But I really felt after coming back from that trip that I was going to need to do even more. So here I am. I've already stood up against my professors. I already have the dream job compared to some of my peers, working for a company that is doing meaningful work. Even our clients insist that we use recycled and soy ink for all the things we do. And that's not enough. I like and we're literally about to move into our new offices where I'm going to get this giant office with a view overlooking Peace Park. Like all this great stuff is in front of me. And I came back and I wrote my resignation letter and I put it on the president and vice president's desk, and they came down to see me at my desk and they're like, Andi, can you come upstairs and talk? And I sat down and we like cried together. I was like, this experience I just had, and I just feel like I probably am gonna have to do my own thing, and I don't know what that thing is yet. And so Val Davis is Kevin Turf and Val Davis, incredible mentors. And Val and I caught up just a few weeks ago, so I'm just giving her a little shout out now. She was like, well, what are you gonna do? I was like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait tables for a little bit. And that's what I did. Like I actually went home, and I had kind of been doing some freelance on the side, but it was more like for friends or helping out my dad or someone I cared about who needed a logo or something. But I went ahead and I'd already started Scullpower Creative. So I was like, all right, well, that's what I'm going to do. So while I'm getting that off the ground, I should probably go make some money. And I looked in the Chronicle because at the time, I mean, the internet was still pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
This is 1999 and then or 2000. And I remembered I circled 3 jobs. One was a floral designer, which actually like I would probably consider doing when I get older, or like when I'm an old lady. Who knows what that would be like now, but so I was floral designer and then a cocktail waitress at a strip club. And then there was a waitressing position at Stubbs Barbecue. So I stopped by the floral place first, and I just did it in the order of like the locations. So I went to the floral place first, and then I went to Stubbs. And I always loved this story because I loved my time there. But so I go down, I have my application, and I wait, and then this guy comes in and he sits down and he's looking at it, and he's like, oh, wait, where are you from? Oh no, I'm sorry. He started talking and I noticed his accent, so I was like, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from Jersey, and I'm like, I'm from Jersey. So I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma until I was 12, but then we moved to New Jersey for my teenage years. So yeah, I got the benefits of living outside of Manhattan as a teenager, which I thoroughly enjoyed, very much took advantage of, and have lots of interesting stories from my teenage years.
A little different than Oklahoma, I'm sure.
Oh, geez. I mean, taking the bus into Manhattan when you're 12 years old to go to the Met by yourself and walk around and buy your own photography classes and go to FIT on the weekends when you're 15 and
I mean,
just
that'd been
walk
a
around the
dream.
village. Yeah.
I grew up in Kansas, so like the Oklahoma is more my background, right? And I couldn't imagine growing up around all that, just and being able to just do something different every day and see something new. It would have just been, that'd been so cool as a kid.
Oh yeah. I mean, it definitely helped shape my life, I mean, being on the permanent guest list for the gay entrance at the Limelight when you were 15, 16, and 17 years old is pretty dope.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. All kinds of fun. Well, so anyway, sitting there with homeboy, and he's like, da, da, da. I'm like, Jersey. And he's like, oh, really? And then he looks at my resume and he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I looked at him and I was like, well, waiting tables is just like advertising, isn't it? You just have to make sure that they're fucking happy. And he's like, you're hired. Great.
Right.
Whatever. So that was great. While I was starting my freelance business, I would go play volleyball during the day, Doubles Beach at Aussie's. And then I'd go over to Stubbs and waitress. And from that I got, lots of free food and drinks, and got to go to all these great shows because Stubbs was a pretty new venue then, and all the great shows.
And you're like 25 at this time, something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds fantastic life. Like there's millionaires that don't get that life. Go play beach volleyball, wait some tables, go see some live shows, hang out with some people. Like that actually sounds like something I would like to do now.
Yeah, no. I that's what I'm saying. Now, having different people really ask me to come share my story, I guess I didn't realize just how much but for me, I just kept paying attention to what I knew would be important for me to be a whole person, for me to be happy, that would make my work better, and that, experiences had so much value and brought so much to what I could do with clients, and relating to experiences and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, waiting tables also at one of the most recommended tourist spots for Austin was also, and barbecue. My boyfriend at the time also was the head chef at Mother's Cafe. So like he'd get done cooking, I'd be done. We'd hang out down on Red River, and oh boy, what was the club that then opened?
Are you talking about that after hours club or?
No, geez, it then became Cheer Up Charlie's. But
I don't even know, because it's always since I've known it, like gone there on a regular, it's been Cheer Up Charlie's. I'm sure bars always turn over so often, but and Red River, for people who don't know, it's by the tourist part of 6th Street, but it's a way more unique street, meaning that the bar has got a lot more, I don't know, culture and are just, they're more unique. They're different. They're fun. A lot of fun. A lot of great music too on Red River.
Yeah. Well, at that time, Stubbs was it, and then this other venue, and then what is now Mohawk, that's owned by my buddies Will and Moody, used to be an upscale cigar and pool joint, which with like beautiful 9-foot tables and so it was, and which I also love playing pool, like going to UT every Thursday. I played pool at the Ritz. So the Alamo Ritz currently used to be a pool hall, the coolest pool hall. Oh my gosh, the coolest pool hall in Austin. And before that, it was a theater that many like famous performers had played on. So it was a really cool time in Austin. But I think I share that now also, again, for any students or young people who are deciding, just like, go have those experiences, and over the years, I got confirmation from the different steps that I'd taken, kind of meeting lots of successful, wealthy celebrities, even, that the decisions I made were right, like money can't buy you these experiences.
Right. And what I was about to say, kind of one of the key takeaways I got from that story is, don't focus on following the money, focus on growing yourself, learning new experiences, figuring out who you are, and the money will come. If you chase that money, you're probably going to end up in something that you didn't decide on, you might not like it so much. So we could go a lot of different directions here. I'm loving just the kind of the timeline historical route. So you want to let's keep going in that route. So, you're at Stubbs, you're having a great time. Life is good. What's next for you?
So Scullpower Creative, my little side, my then official, company freelance starts growing and is doing pretty well, which was great because then I started realizing too how mobile my life was. I remember going to visit my grandparents in Malaysia and going to an internet cafe to send a client some logo finals and was like, wow. And nobody else was doing this.
Right.
It was, yeah, totally. Like I remember being in this internet cafe and be like, with students, and I'm like emailing my client as if I'm still in Austin. I was like, wow, this is dope.
Yeah, I could make money while traveling. How crazy is that, right? I mean, and now a lot of people do that, but early 2000s just wasn't even a thing at all, hardly.
No, yeah, it very much wasn't. So let's see. I then I was doing that, and then things did seem a little slow, and so I did decide to go back into the advertising world for what I thought might just be a contract. And so I had this great experience of meeting this woman, MP, and her ad agency at the time called Nor's Ads. And this story I love too, which all these stories I realize I never talk about, right?
That's what's great about a podcast. Right. I just over here just get to listen to fun stories.
Right. So I remember it was an ad. I go in, and I walk into this incredibly creative ad agency. It's all open space, and the secretary is like, yeah, you can go ahead and wait over at our boardroom, and the board room was actually a surfboard table. And so I have this interview, it goes well. And then I'm like, do you mind, can I use the restroom? And as I go to the restroom, I notice a bottle of Pinot Grigio on the creative director's, the president and owner's desk. So I went home and I made a label for a bottle of Pinot Grigio and, custom did it. And I would do this all the time. I at my own little color printer at home, just make unique things. And so I did that, and I stopped back by the next day and I dropped it off, and it was basically I put just describing me as like a really nice bottle of wine that they should probably try, and she loved it, and so I got the job. So then I kind of have a history of doing that. So did a little stint in advertising again, and then things were kind of slow at the agency, so I come home to my new house. I bought a house off of East 12th when I was 25 with my brother, who's one of my best friends and to this day, one of my kind of business partners. And he was working in film at the time. So he had also gone to UT, went through the RTF intensive production sequence, which is their kind of version. And that program also, had Robert Rodriguez, Mike Judge, Wes Anderson, like Linkletter, these incredible, at the time we're still pretty young still. But so my brother and I are sitting on the front steps of our East 12th 4-bedroom, 2-bath home that we bought for $99,000.
Which, by the way, in East 12th right now is like one of the hottest places to own.
Yeah. And even that story, man, I have pictures of my closing, and I bought that house from this dude, Shorty. Yeah. And I literally have a picture of us pounding at the closing, and he has like a white sweatband and this white silk shirt with like dragons on it. And yeah, we like hit it off, and I actually ended up buying another house from him down the street as a rental house and rented that to another dear friend and creative who also was deciding to take his career to the next level. Is my friend Jeff, who people know as Chicken George.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. So it's this really cool time. So anyway, my brother and I are sitting there, and I'm like, dude, what if I wanted to just like take a break, and could you get me a PA job on whichever film you're going to work on next? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. I mean, I could look into it. I'm like, well, what's coming up? He's like, well, um, Rodriguez is doing Spy Kids 2. And then there's this other film that Alan Parker is going to do. It's called The Life of David Gale. Or no, I don't think it was. I don't think it was even titled yet. But he's like, yeah, this guy Alan Parker. He did Pink Floyd The Wall, Mississippi Burning. I'm like, cool. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. So I go to work the next day. I get there early. I wait for my boss to come in. No one else is there. I go over to her desk. I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, well, talked to my brother last night. And so this is again, like really, really paying attention to however you're feeling, whatever's going on, and having courage and just taking control of your own life.
And actually doing something about it. Because I think a lot of people get stuck. They might hear that and then they get really fearful of taking that step. And maybe it's just a personality trait that you have. It's one of those things like if you could figure out some way to help people do that. I mean, I think it's a really tough process, but I think the biggest thing is just to listen. And I've had that a lot in my life and career, but I've also realized where I didn't listen or I had to almost shout at myself, because I've been listening for a while, but I didn't do it as quickly, right? Which you're just wasting time then.
Yes. Well, and in this case too, like I was really feeling my boss at the agency just feeling like there wasn't any new work coming in. And then that kind of stress would fall down to me and the other art director. We're sitting there daily, like not really having enough work to do. And so it was kind of that team effort. And then I for sure there is a difference and a reason why certain people gravitate more to the way I describe it is either being a player, a star player, a team captain, or a coach. But all are important and all are needed. Without one, it's not the others, right? So it's not like everybody's, but for me, it's kind of always being the team captain. I would sit there and be like, shit, I need to like help her. So I come in that day and I'm like, listen, what do you think about me taking a little sabbatical and I could go work on a film for like 6 months? And she just teared up and started crying and was like, Andi, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, like just take a break from my salary. And she's like, I can't believe you're offering this, and she's like, that would be amazing. And we'll keep your desk and we'll continue to pay for your benefits. And she just like took it to another level. And I was like, great.
Perfect.
Let's do this. So she gets all happy and then everyone's arriving at work. And so I'm sitting at my desk and the phone rings and it's my brother. He's like, you're never going to believe this. So I just went in and talked to the art department and we need a graphic designer. So then I'm like, put the phone down. I'm like, MP, they need I'm like, can I leave now? Like instead of for lunch, like I think it was like 10 a.m. or something. She's like, hey, yeah, go ahead. So I shoot down to the Austin Film Studios, walk in, meet Steve Arnold, who incredible art director. And he's like, yeah, like what's like here's the thing and here's the graphic designers we have, but we just have such a heavy load. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah. So I like immediately start working in film.
Just you open the door though. That's the interesting part. Is it's funny, if you never have had that conversation, that door never, it might open perhaps, but and that's how powerful just conversations and meeting people and getting out and about can be, is you just never know what door is going to open and what it's going to lead to. That's really fun.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think as for an artist and creatives, really feeling and knowing that these skill sets that you have, that you're meant to share these with the world, And so for me, even sitting there and feeling like, oh, I don't have enough work, it's like, well, then I should go bring my talent somewhere else or do something. And so I think that can go back to what you were asking before about putting yourself out there. And so it's really about believing in, to me, what you want to share with the world. And there is a difference. I have noticed that over the years that there are lots of artists that are specifically are driven more to like share, want the world to see who they are as opposed to sharing their talents. And one is not bad and one is not good, but that's critical too.
Yeah, and I take that in a slightly different way, but I think the same direction is. I think a lot of times when you share your story of like how you came about something or what this meant to you, how you felt, I think a lot of that times you can really kind of connect with people. Whereas a lot of times people just want to be like, hey, look at me over here, right? And again, that's not bad to say, hey, look at me over here, but it doesn't usually connect with people as strongly, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, the I think the summary too is there's no equation or recipe. The importance is for each individual person to discover exactly their own recipe, their own equation. And I even say that in other things, like whether it's your diet or your whatever your habits are, just really pay attention to what helps you relieve stress, what your particular, I call it the, when you get a plant and a little tab in there with all the instructions, like you got to find out how much soil, how much sunlight, and how much water you need. And all those pots are, you got, oh, well, this one's a little different and this one's a little different. Well, but that's up to you to figure out. And then you can help kind of share that with other people.
That's very interesting. I love it. That's cool because and the thing is, if you don't pay attention, it's just going to happen, and that's why sometimes people get out of control in certain areas. Similar to things like routines. Like we all have routines, whether you plan them yourself or not. Like if you don't plan your routine, you might fall into something that you not want to do every single day or go towards some goal that you want to have happen. But yeah, just paying attention is very powerful.
Yeah. Well, and really, there's no judgment in that either. Like I mean, uh, a joke that some of my friends even we had recently. Forget we were watching uh, Global Citizens stay at home live broadcast thing, and they had the Rolling Stones come on, and we were all texting each other, and we were like, "The cure for all illnesses, is in Mick Jagger." Like, like the I just used him as an example of like, your recipe could be totally extreme.
Yeah.
It's not like balance or that. It's not saying that. But you gotta find out what it is.
I was actually supposed to see the Rolling Stones over Memorial Weekend. That was canceled. Well, postponed. So we'll see. That one's just like, they're getting older. I want to see. I haven't seen him yet. I want to see him before anything happens. So hopefully that'll happen sooner than later, but probably be a little later. But
that's so funny. A friend recently was sharing how like the Stones played. I don't know. Maybe like 10 years ago, and it was the same thing. Like, better see him soon because it's like these guys are never dying.
Yeah, no, never. No, I think he's figured out his recipe for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the story. I guess you're kind of getting you're joined the film crew or as a graphic designer. And the film, and Austin does have a film scene. It's not near as big as like LA or something, but especially there for a bit, it was growing and growing. And I still think it's growing now, not at the pace it was. Now there's more environments. We have Atlanta and other areas that are kind of, I think it's overall a good thing that there's multiple areas of film communities as opposed to just one. But anyway, I'll let you continue on the story, the path.
Well, okay. For sure, our film community is pretty incredible. And we are the third coast for lots of things. And now we have really seen kind of tech and other areas really, really grow. But yeah, I love giving our film industries props. So So yeah, I worked on that, which was really cool. Kevin Spacey, Kate Winslet.
It was a great movie, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really was such a great experience. And then I ended up working on a couple more films. And then during that, I met this woman who was looking for different models for a photo shoot, and she's just specifically wanted an Asian girl with freckles. So my brother's girlfriend at the time was like, "Oh, you should meet Andi. She's she's your Asian, has freckles." So I meet this woman, and I'm like, "Well, what's your photo shoot for?" And she's like, "Well, I'm starting a magazine." I'm like, "Well, what is it? Tell me more about it." And she really was just getting started, and it's like, "Well, I'm a graphic designer, and I kind of specialize in logos. Do you have a logo? What is it?" And she's like, "Well, it's going to be called Push." And I'm like, "Oh, I like that." And so we end up partnering on this little magazine that ends up being a really incredible experience. And I end up meeting my first investor, which I was not planning on. In fact, the way we met and him offering investment in me was not even something I pitched to him. So I think that really sharing with creatives and entrepreneurs, kind of this building up of kind of courage and stuff, that by the time I was sitting at whiskey bar with the bartender or the bar manager going over their ad in my little magazine, and this dude is sitting there by himself at like 3 p.m. and he overhears us talking. And the bar manager's like, "Oh, hey, Chris, this is Andi." And I'm like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you." These moments that then just kind of happen naturally, but that all those things, like me going to college, all these things that I then just had in my kind of experience bank, to then let me sit down with this total stranger who then I'm like, "Well, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Well, I'm kind of celebrating my business partner and I just had a big sale, and yeah, just sitting here kind of soaking it in." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I love this story. So he's like, "Well, can I show you something?" I'm like, "Sure." And again, it's literally just us. Like, this bar is not even open yet. And then the bar manager, and you're like, so he gets up off the bar stool, and he's like, "Come over here." And he has to come over to a jukebox they had, because the jukebox had light. And he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out this coin, and he's holding it in front of the light. And he's like, "Do you recognize this?" I'm like, "No." Like, "Oh God, like what's?" And he's like, "So my business partner gave me this today, and it is a replica of one of the 30 pieces that Judas was paid for Jesus's head. And he gave me this to remind me the value of money, because we made millions of dollars today." And I was like, "Oh,
It's intense.
yeah, like oh, okay, and like, I look at the bar manager who I knew him. He's like, because I'm like, because he's here, they're friends. He's came to talk to him, to share with him. And then I got included in this, right? So I'm like, "Wow, that's incredible." I'm like, "Well, how do you feel?" And I just kind of, so it's getting close to 4 o'clock. They're about to open, and he goes to the bathroom or something. And the bar manager is like, "Hey, it's actually also his birthday."
Nice.
So I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm gonna hang around, and then once people get here, then I'll buy him like a birthday shot." So I do. I wait. People get there, and then I look at my friend, and he's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, can I, buy us a round of shots?" Of which I also do not do. Like, I mean, I kind of do now, but then and for years, like I was famous for like
throwing it, faking it, yeah.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And this guy's like, "Oh my gosh, well, Andi, I don't drink." And I'm like, Wait, you're kidding. I waited around here to like buy you a birthday shot and you don't even drink. Like I didn't even notice he was like drinking a soda or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
So then he's like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, oh God. Like, oh, I hope you didn't get the wrong idea. Like what, and he's like, I've been thinking about it and I have a big project that I think I could use your talents for. And I'm like, okay. He's like, well, why don't you meet me for coffee on campus? It was at, so anyway, go there, walk in this coffee shop. My friend Wade Beasley owns Mojo's. It's Mojo's. I don't know if it's Mojo's anymore. Right? I think so. Anyway, I walk in and he has got the largest laptop I have ever seen in my life. I don't even know what these were. It was like this huge, like
the Dell XPS with the briefcase handle, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
like it was like a 22-inch screen or something.
Yeah, but this was like 2001.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Like to me, I mean, again, what I then find out about kind of the success and, like, so I'm like, hi. And he's like, okay. And so he starts showing me something, and I'm just saying yes, trying to follow along. Then he's like, closes it, and he's like, okay, can I show you something? I'm like, sure. Like, right. So he's like, will you follow me? Did you drive? I'm like, yeah. So then follow him back to the warehouse district. This is the next day. Anyway, park, then get a car, and he's like, come here. Follow him, and then he opens a door next to Oil Can Harry's, walks me up these stairs, walks to this back room, opens a door, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I think? And he's like, do you need an office?
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And he's like, great, here's your new office. I
Downtown.
All bills paid, covered, because I was doing all of my meetings at Halcyon. John Long had just bought it, and he saw me there meeting contributors and models, and and so John gave me the Wi-Fi passcode because that was also not wireless was not a thing.
Not a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he made it possible for me to office there, and I was putting everyone's ads in the magazine and doing trade. So I was setting up trade accounts at Red Fez, at Lucky Lounge, at Saba, and so that was a way any of the creatives that were contributing. I'm like, so we're just starting. We don't really have any funds, but you can eat for free and drink for free at any of these places. And I'm shooting the ads. I'm doing, I'm putting in all the sweat equity. So yeah, that was the story of my first investor.
So what did he get out of that deal? Like, so, obviously he's giving you office, he's got the space, he's got some money, but did he just want your services? Like what did he get out of giving that office?
He needed some graphic design layout help for some decks for a pitch they were doing in Houston. That's it. He just saw the magazine. And he's like, you're a graphic designer. I need you. So as long as if you could just do the stuff that I need for you, then you have a paid for office now. Cause like, I'm not even using it and And so,
wow.
Yeah. And again, wasn't looking for that, wasn't pitching, but I have noticed that over the years, other friends of mine too, that when you're just kind of really out doing, and if you feel comfortable and meeting and talking with people, that there's a whole business world of people that are constantly searching and looking to invest in people.
Mm-hmm. And I also, getting yourself out there, I've kind of said before, a lot of you just have to kind of be around and open to those environments. And, with you were probably saying some really cool stuff and showing the cool magazine, because it's hard to hire people. It's hard to find people that are good and trustworthy. And I don't know. I think it's just interesting that a lot of people will go to like a networking event trying to get business, and that can work, but that's like everyone selling there as opposed to just, being a human and interacting and just being around cool people and cool things happen. But, so you got this cool office, and what's next for your life? Like what happens next? I feel like I'm not even doing anything here. I'm just
That you're
love
what?
it. I'm not even having to do anything here. Usually I have a whole list of questions. I think your story is just super interesting so far.
Oh,
And then we
well,
haven't even got to the cool, everything's cool, but the big stuff.
it's true. There's two more parts. And maybe I'll speed it up a little.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
Are we good on time?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
So during the magazine, I get an invitation to a party, and I walk in, and there's one of my magazines on the coffee table, and friends were sharing this that and I do want to back up and say that this Push magazine was an idea of this woman Chella, and I came in to support, and then she asked me to partner with her on it. But it really, to me, was her thing, and I think what I end up doing next is because I was just noticing and seeing so much going on within that I really was like, I'm gonna hand this to her and kind of do this other thing that I'm noticing. So I walk into this party, and it's at a big mansion, and this guy who owns it is like, Andi, if, you should invite all your friends. Like, we're gonna have another party next weekend. You should, invite all those artists and models and all those friends in your magazine. I'm like, sure. I don't know how I feel about that, and I'm walking out, and I notice that there's a for sale sign in his yard, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that would be interesting though. What if I flip the conversation? What if the party was about my friends? So I then went to him and was like, hey, how would you feel about me throwing an art show here? I just saw that you're trying to sell your house. What if? And he was like, oh my gosh, that's an incredible idea. Like, basically, you want to do an open house,
invite people with money to come look at my house that's, got a bunch of cool people in it.
Right. So that's what happens. Like, I tell my editor on the magazine, I'm like, listen, I just talked to this guy. I'm really kind of feeling this, that I just want to start producing some art shows that really are showcasing everyone's talents who've been contributing to the magazine, because the magazine really didn't make any money, and it definitely didn't make anything to pay anybody. And even I was over having like free drinks at Red Fez. So Burn the Box movement became what I then did next. And so I started showcasing artistic talent in places that were for lease or for sale the last Sunday of every month. And at each show, there was a featured beer, liquor, wine sponsor and a featured restaurant. And it was a secret event. And you did not know where the party was unless you were on my email list. And the email would go out the Thursday before. And by the third month, there's 3,000 people on this email list that had become a thing. It was just so incredible. Even the first show, two friends of mine walk in, Kevin Burns and Will Stakely, and they're like, Andi, we're about to launch this company called Urban Space, and we'd like to be your new sponsors. I'm like, great, let's do it, boys. Like, you guys find the spaces, and I'll put together the show, bring the art, and all that. So, that I did for 34 months. I mean, it was a really good run that brought me to LA, and then that's where the story of H.O.P.E begins, where essentially I end up taking everything that I learned from advertising, film, the magazine, and producing art shows, and put it into the Helping Other People Everywhere campaign, and launched my own 501c3 nonprofit and nonprofit production company.
And before we get too deep, how'd you come up with that name? Because it's a wonderful acronym. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
Like, that is marketing genius right there. I think it's just fantastic. And I do a lot of marketing. So like that, I just, and I've pained over names before for like, days upon days upon days trying to figure out, what the name of company or event or something. So
You're not gonna like this, but for whatever reason, most all the things that I've worked on or created or decisions that I made have kind of happened instantaneously.
That's how the good stuff happens. It does
Yeah.
happen. That's how it works. But
So burn the box movement. Like I literally remember standing out in the rain on St. Patty's Day on the phone with the editor of my magazine, who is also my doubles volleyball partner. And he's like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna do these shows. It's gonna be called Burn the Box." Because I'm tired of people saying, think out of the box. Like fuck your box. I'm burning it down. And I'm just going to do something totally different. And at the time, nobody was doing anything like that in Austin. And it really progressed very quickly. And then it had after parties, and it was just, and it was amazing. And through that, I ended up meeting even some of my partners to this day. H.O.P.E Outdoor Gallery and what we're building. One of my partners is CK Chen, and we met when he was the bar manager of Kenichi.
and now he's got some of the best restaurants in Austin, a couple of them. Yeah, and they're all fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And yeah, and we're partners in Native, and so again, these projects, these experiences, and these people kind of end up being the building of my empire to get to H.O.P.E.
Mm-hmm.
And so H.O.P.E. There's a little bit more of a backstory to it. I'm probably gonna have to skip that just for time, but I I I ended up coming up with the name because I was trying to help this guy who had just become my roommate in Santa Monica. So I take Burn the Box movement out to LA. I meet up with one of my dearest friends to this day now, Krista Bell, who a lot of Austinites know her from. She was the lead singer of 8.5 Souvenirs. She just is a true Texas-born talent that now has been making music with David Lynch for 15 years, and he made her one of the stars of Twin Peaks too. And anyway, she calls me. She's already living in LA. She's like, "Andi, do you want to do a Burn the Box out in LA?" I met this woman. She has this incredible $4 million building in downtown Santa Monica. I've seen it. It's so cool. Da da da. And I remember sitting in my car at Deep Eddy. I'd just gone swimming, and I'm like just sweating bullets in the car. You know, like when the Texas heat, just like I just got in my car. I hadn't even turned the car on, phone rings, and I'm just like sweating.
It's 82 in LA, probably. You know, it's 110 here.
Yeah. And I was like, yes, let's do it. I was like, I'm coming. Let's do it. So that's what gets me out to LA. And then, so her and I are roommates, and she's traveling and performing. And so we decide to rent out her room, and a friend recommends this guy who she's like, "Hey, I met this guy and he's saving the world. There's a documentary film coming out about him at Sundance, and he's living in his truck." And I'm like, "Geez, yeah, for sure. Let me meet him." Like, so we meet. I watch the screener of this doc on him called "The Devil Came on Horseback," and I'm like just bawling. This film is about him releasing photographs to Nicholas Kristof at the New York Times to prove this genocide that is still happening in Darfur and in Sudan. And it was just mind-boggling to me, especially because in ninth grade in New Jersey, one of our required readings was Night by Elie Wiesel. And that book also changed my life. That 100 pages, just reading about artists in concentration camps and really understanding that when you're born to create, like it doesn't stop. Like even in the worst situations, the art that they found in concentration camps, and then you see this, you know, just the way humans survive, and what that also gives to others by them sharing that in those worst situations. So anyway, I'm like, I have to help you. I'm like, well, I and this documentary is showing him like, I mean, on the mall in DC, talking to thousands of people with Condoleezza Rice, like going to the up and ups, letting them know, hey, there is a genocide happening. We need to do something. And they're like, yeah, we ain't doing shit. Like,
Right.
so I'm like, I'm like, I don't have much, but I've got a lot of artists and talent,
Mm-hmm.
and I can mobilize some stuff for you pretty quickly that could end up being exactly the type of help you guys need right now. So that's what happens. So I'm driving, and no, I told him that night. I remember I was like, I keep seeing the word hope. I don't know why. I keep seeing the word hope. I feel like that will be a part of this. It'll I don't know why. And then I remember I was driving to pick him up, and he opened the door and got in the car, and it was like that. I was like, oh, it's an acronym, and it stands for helping other people everywhere. So it was a moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Not a spitball, not a brainstorm, like, and I was like, oh, right, it's an acronym. Because I keep seeing it in bold, all caps. And I'm like, and it's a campaign. It's called the H.O.P.E campaign. And we're gonna blow the red campaign out of the water. That's what it is. Like, so there was kind of some logic in that, that I, with my advertising marketing background, knew kind of what the red campaign was trying to achieve, was kind of watching, seeing. And then Africa, and saying, okay, well, how do we bring people's attention if they're already looking at the red campaign, and when people think Africa top of mind, where can I take them? So I call my buddies over at Zambezi Inc., which is a new ad agency that my buddies had just started with Kobe Bryant, and I knew them because we were friends, but they also had asked me to submit logo designs for KB24. They're like, yeah, Kobe's changing his number, and we thought it'd be good for you to submit some logo designs. And I was like, oh my god, wow, thank you, wow, this is such a. I'm like, wait a minute, who are the other graphic designers that you're asking? And they're like, oh, so-and-so and Shepard Fairey. And I was like, yeah, fuck you dudes. That's awesome. Yeah, just throw me in the mix of like, of course Kobe's going to pick Shepard. Like, I don't even know why you're doing this.
Right.
Like it was
just to have some extras to show them.
Right. I'm like, I know this play.
Yeah.
Here's A, B, and C, so it can be like, okay, let's clearly go the one, but and that is, what happened, but which I didn't mind at all. Again, it was such an honor just to be asked.
It's fun to be involved. Oh yeah, for sure.
And again, these guys were some of my super close friends, and I'd only been living in Santa Monica, Venice Beach for like a year. So I call them like, hey guys, I tell them all about Brian and the documentary, and I'm like, yeah, so I want to start this thing. It's gonna be called the H.O.P.E campaign. They're like, come over. So we walk in, and it's like these guys, and they're all roommates, and it's like one's one of the production guys for South Park, and creative director for Zambezi Inc., and they're just like ripping bongs. Like, it's just like walk into like Venice Beach house, just like filled with weed, and here's this guy I had with me who's like ex-captain of the Marines, and they're like, what up, Andy? And I'm like, what's up, dudes? And I'm like, come outside, I gotta talk. So I'm like, yeah, so here's the idea, helping other people everywhere. They've got a documentary, there's cause, there's a book, there's a whole group called Save Darfur. There's just a shit ton of stuff that people need to know about. So I feel like if we can umbrella it under this, then I could ask all of our creative friends to start getting involved. We could get musicians to donate songs. I could start reaching out. So they get it right away. And they're like, you should talk to Shepard about this. And I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, you should talk to Shepard and Amanda about this. So I'm like, okay. So they text us together. And next thing I know, I'm bringing Brian Steidle to Shepard Fairey's office in downtown LA and meeting him and his wife and talking about this idea. And Shepard's like, I'm in. We did also, I set up a screening of the doc and invited 50 other marketing, just creatives. And I did. So I encourage that too, that when you have an idea and I listened to one of the podcasts that you did, and you were sharing how you'll encourage people to go ask 100 people.
Yeah, at least 100. Yeah, if you can. That way, you're going to get, because your friends and family, they're probably not going to tell you the truth. But you get outside that network, you're going to really start learning, is that documentary powerful? Is the idea powerful? Are they moved by any of this stuff, right? And if you see a trend, it's more real. The bigger survey size you can get to, that always helps.
Yeah. So in this case, I asked a club owner friend, which also, so as soon as I got to LA, I also was playing beach volleyball down at the pier and playing doubles with this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I own this Italian restaurant." And I'm like, "Where?" And it's blocks away from my place. So I'm like, I really have interest. I really want to know more about wine. Do you happen to need a new menu design or something like this? And he's like, "Yeah, come by." So we did trade to learn more and kind of get to know him. And turns out that Italian restaurant also is kind of the celebrity spot where a lot of those that live in Malibu will order to go. And so I would have so many different conversations with, just again, I feel looking at my time and knowing that I didn't really have interest. I wasn't trying to go out and party. I wasn't, I was trying to build my business or my career. And so any other activity I wanted to do, I wanted it to be fun and productive, and so trade was always a good way for me to make those experiences happen.
You can still party. You're just partying with the people that you're doing business with, you're hanging out and as opposed to just partying to party's sake, you're more just, it's you're networking with them or however you want to put it. One thing I do want to get to just in case of time, because I'm very interested in the story of how did the H.O.P.E Gallery come to Austin, and how did this, I have a photo behind you there. It took in 2012, 8 years ago. How did that all happen, right?
Yeah. So the story of H.O.P.E Outdoor Gallery begins when I start H.O.P.E in LA, and then I come back to Austin to visit 2009 South by, and I successfully launched it with Shepard Fairey's support, and then a lot of other creatives got on board, and I'm like, I should move back to Austin. That South by was epic.
Yeah, South by, it'll get you. It'll make you want the energy's. It's amazingly terrible, fantastic. It's all everything, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'd lived here 12 years before going out to LA. So, I was at the very first South by, pretty much. Not the very
cool.
first, but it was, I remember my freshman year in college, walking around and being like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I could just tell, I'm like, I should really bring H.O.P.E here. So 2009, I moved back, and we started H.O.P.E Farmers Market. And then a dear friend of mine, Mariska Nicholson, told me about these walls in her neighborhood, and that she'd had visions of wanting to put posters up, and her specific story is in our second book. So we have two books on the project, one that we put out in 2013 and one in 2017, and we will be doing reprints of those, and they'll be available on our web store. But for sure, when we open the park, which is looking to be February of next year, that's the first time I am saying that publicly. But Mariska brings me over to these walls, and she's like, yeah, I've just always envisioned there being all this art on it. Maybe we could promote the farmer's market. And I was like, you are crazy. These walls are enormous. I don't even know what you're talking about. This is its own project. This is I'm like, Mariska, I'm just going to have to think about this, whether I even have the bandwidth, but whatever this is, it's like big.
Mm-hmm.
It's not posters. It's like, so, so I think kind of usual, I've, then reached out to a few creatives, kind of run the idea by, and I'm like, listen, do you know this place? And if I ask permission to start an outdoor gallery, would you use it? And so I asked Sloak, I asked Billy Bishop, and then I sent footage to Shepherd Ferry in LA. And I was like, if I started this, would you maybe want to like help me kick it off and be one of the first like artists? And he's like, yeah, kidding? Like, you always love space to put up more art. So, and then Slope was like, yeah, I was like, all right. So Mariska and I go and meet the owners, and it was Dick Clark, who's passed away, and him and I knew each other from him volunteering work in Kenya for H.O.P.E High School with Turk Pipkin. And Turk I had introduced to my aunt in Nairobi, and to a few other arts groups to help support the opening of this high school. So he's like, hey, Andy, what's up? Dick Clark. I'm like, well, Mariska says you own this property, and I have this idea. How would you feel about utilizing it as like an outdoor gallery where then muralists and street artists, graffiti artists could then create practice, but also we could put up cool messages for stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, I dig it. Now you got to talk to my other partner. He's over there in that castle. And you got to go talk to Vic. So we go talk to Vic. Vic, same thing. He's like, I think it's a great idea. We're not going to develop it for 3 to 5 years. Let's see how it goes. Maybe we'll just do it for a year.
And the background of it, failed development, or why? Because there were some unfinished walls for somebody who's never been to Austin and seen it. And big, like you said, some of those walls were big, and this was pretty steep up, right? So there was multi levels too.
Yeah. So this property had 3 levels of walls that were each 13 feet high, and the largest walls were like 72 to 80 feet long. And it was a failed condo development. In fact, the condos were fully built, and people had moved into them. They had sold them, and then their walls started cracking. And so it was improperly engineered. They had just not taken the foundations as far down as they needed to go. And so it had sat there vacant since the 80s. And a lot of locals knew it as the foundation. It has this incredible view of the Capitol. It was a place that people, even graffiti artists, were already kind of going to. Lots of locals have different stories of there, but it had never become an actual program or permission walls, if you will. So when I started H.O.P.E Outdoor Gallery in 2010, and then had Shepherd support, and then kind of all the other different artists, it was a brand new thing. So the first year, it was a little struggle on the ramp up. Even this picture, like, I remember going out there and Joseph he said he'd come out and help me and my husband at the time clean up, because homeless were living there. Mm-hmm. But when I say living there at the time, it was full on like bad. In terms of their conditions. Mm-hmm. And the project, that was also an important part to me, that we like kind of maintained really great relations with the homeless community that had called that their home, even though they weren't allowed to. It was private property. So, but it ended up becoming, well, obviously now it's my life. So I am currently now the creative director and owner of H.O.P.E Outdoor Gallery. Mm-hmm. That is my job title.
And you and I know we're speeding through this, which is but like, so now you guys got the big development coming. You're saying that you're going to be open next year, but like, tell us, so obviously you had to move. Are they developing on the land? I assume would be the impetus for you guys having to do that, or was there a different reason? Did you want to just scale it up, or Give us that story.
Yeah. So it was always a temporary uh, installation. Um, what's interesting is really how the property owner was actually the hero and angel of the story, because what was 1 year turned to 3 years, turned to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, by the third year, it became one of his favorite art projects that he'd ever been involved in. And this man actually has been on the board and participated greatly in the culture of Austin and supporting musicians and visual arts. And so I was just surprised as well how much he really was loving seeing how it had become top tourist destination.
And this is very valuable land in Austin too, by the way. If somebody's never heard of or seen where it was, I mean, we're talking really close to downtown, really close to the Capitol, and a large space I would assume that the revenue is zero or nominal to him, right? To let people use the space, right?
Yeah, I mean, so during those years, he paid the property taxes, and then come time for the sale, he even specifically made sure whoever he sold it to, that they had to understand that the project was not moving until we found a permanent home. And so he essentially lost at least $1 million on the sale.
Wow.
Intentionally. So he's, a true supporter of the arts for Austin. And that development group also, we are working together on the transition, and there are some interesting pieces that they have committed to and wanted to, where we've worked out ideas for acknowledging the original site and what they're building there, and then we are gonna bring over a memorial wall from the spot that will be showcased at the new art park, and then the walls there, they're actually going to have to demo anyway. So since I am still an environmentalist and very into upcycling, we're working on them bringing over those crushed walls, and then we will grind it up and use it as the pathways that people walk on.
Oh, very cool.
At the new park.
That's fantastic. And where's going to be the new park located at?
So it is right across the street from the airport, and we've actually designed the park to spell the word hope from the sky, because it is in between two flight paths coming into the city, which currently are not that active, but prior to COVID, it averaged 10 planes per hour.
Wow.
So,
every single day.
Yeah. But still, no matter what, like just its location, it's, 10 minutes from downtown. It's also on the way to Coda. And it just looks like we're going to be able to support a lot of the arts in Austin through this outdoor art park.
Plus, a permanent location just it takes some of the stress off of not knowing what your future holds with the location that you were at for so many years, right?
Well, yeah, but what's incredible that people just don't really realize, having a project for 9 years that you get to test things and collect information, that by the time I created the pro forma for this to sit down with supporters and investors, it was like not even projections. Like, this is just data that we were then showing, and then the things that we learned, so typically, let's say in the art world, for art installations, you don't ever get that type of opportunity to really test something. And then for entrepreneurs or creatives, same thing. You don't get to like test out your restaurant, see if people like it, Yeah. And other things like that. So it was a really cool place to be with all this, which really was the experience the whole time, that me and the property owner and my other partner, Antonio, all the meetings that we were having with the city and other interested locations, it was like, we know how this works. Like, we know what the artists want, what they need. We know what the public enjoys about it. We had a trailer on site. We had spray paint on site. We had ice cream trucks showing up at 6 a.m. fighting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we saw all of this. We documented all of it. So we even surveyed thousands of people and put different locations and what would you, and so yeah, by the time we raised the money, it's like me just sitting there like you explaining, I don't know, just something that you've already done for so long.
Yeah, a little different than just an idea, right?
Yeah.
Hit the full book. Well, we didn't get to Native Hostel and all that, but you know, in presence of time, I'll ask. This is the question I end every podcast with. My last question is, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, could you give me a little bit more on that? You mean
it's however you want to take it. How would you like to be remembered?
As an Asian American mom that really helps support the cultural arts.
I love it. It's a perfect answer. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was very interesting, and I think people are going to get a ton of value out of it. Very excited for the H.O.P.E gallery to be open. Just several months away. It's almost here, so that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was great. Thank you. Cheers.